On the question of separatism, I'll delineate more specifically in my question to you in the way in which the leader and yourself might address it. Because I also understand the sentiment of feeling overlooked, and I wouldn't want to disregard that or castigate those who feel that way. But in my mind, there is a clear difference between expressing that sentiment and deciding to go meet with officials in the Trump administration to fund a movement to break up this country. Does your party denounce that act?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, decisions about Canada should be made by Canadians. I think we can all agree on that, absolutely. And what I would say, it's not just a feeling of being overlooked. Sometimes I talk to people who say, we wish we were just overlooked. It's when Liberals impose harmful policies like the carbon tax, like the No More Pipelines bill, like the shipping ban on Canadian energy, oil and gas off the West Coast. So I think what we're going to speak to, what you're going to hear Conservatives talk about this is, look, I'm a Western Canadian. I don't want to give up on Canada. I fight for this country. I'm proud of our history and our heritage, and I believe that a Conservative government can unite all regions of Canada, including Quebec, by respecting provincial jurisdictions, including Saskatchewan and Alberta, by championing our resource sector and not forcing a harmful industrial carbon tax. I understand why provincial premiers might say, well, it's not quite as bad as what it was under the Trudeau government, but that shouldn't be the bar that we set for ourselves as Canadians. Being better, slightly less bad than Justin Trudeau shouldn't be the measure of success.
But Danielle Smith isn't just saying it's slightly less bad than it was under Justin Trudeau. She's very much endorsing the MOU that she signed. And I'm wondering also, because when you were talking and you were sort of, the way the pitch from your party appears to be that this government is the same as the last government when it comes to those issues around resource development, for example. I have a number of quotes here from delegates that myself and my colleagues spoke to today. Carney is a different animal, so Poilievre will have to change his approach and be more likable because he doesn't need to be so antagonizing. If you want a good government, then you need strong opposition, and opposition needs to work with government, not just criticize. We're in a very difficult situation with the U.S. and need to be working for a solution. There's a lot of things we can do together, and I think we need to cooperate and get things done. It's not fair to characterize Mr. Carney's actions on resource development as exactly the same as Mr. Trudeau's. They quite simply have not been.
Well, the results are the same. The results are the same, and that's the point. Mark Carney wrote a book defining who he is as a human being called Values. In that book, he talked about leaving oil and gas in the ground, leaving our natural resources in the ground, saying that carbon taxes have to be ever higher. I believe that what happened was Liberals realized that Liberal policies were unpopular, so they're pretending to adopt some Conservative policies, but they're not actually going to see it through. So we'll see. We'll see if a pipeline to the Pacific gets built. We'll see if an industrial carbon tax ever gets dropped. We'll see if real barrel reform ever comes in. But right now, what we've seen from the Liberals is a lot of lip service, a lot of change in rhetoric, but not really on results.
But they've removed the oil and gas. For one example, they've removed the oil and gas emissions cap, for example, through this MOU.
If all these other conditions are
but they have provided a path to which the tanker ban could be exempted.
We'll see.
But that's not the same as Trudeau.
But it's not the same outcome. It is the same outcome. To this point, it is the same outcome. We'll see what happens. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath. I don't believe that Mark Carney believes in it. I take him at his word when he wrote that book. When he wrote that book, quoting Karl Marx and talking about his core values and talking about leaving oil and gas in the ground, I believe him. I also believe that Liberals are unburdened by principle, and so they will say whatever it takes to get elected. But we'll see what actually comes and the results part of it. And the intentions, the rhetoric, you can't pay your bills with that. You can't get a job in the oil and gas sector with good intentions or a change of rhetoric. It takes results. And to this point, on the day that we are having this conversation, the rhetoric has changed, but the results haven't.
What do you take from that? That's not my words. Those are the words of delegates who are here. I want to ask you specifically because, for example, I interviewed Minister McKinnon, your counterpart in the government earlier, who had a series of examples he provided in which he characterized the behavior of your party in government at this time of crisis as anything but collaborative. Your delegates here are asking for more collaboration. Will that be reflected tonight?
Well, first of all, you clearly have some of those sentiments. There's over 2,000 people here.
Yeah, I didn't talk to all of them. But I was surprised at how specific they were. That's why I bring it up.
You may recall, I'm sure you do recall that when the Liberals said that they needed Bill C-5, rather than repeal bad Liberal legislation, they said they needed a special law to go around bad Liberal legislation that would get big projects built. we passed that. We allowed that to pass. We said, okay, we'll put up or shut up type of thing. Let's give you this legislation and see what actually comes from it. Mark Carney said we can move he could move at unimaginable speeds. We're almost a year into his term. Not a single new project has gone through the major projects office. So where we think that the Liberal legislation will at least do no further harm, or where we say, okay, well, this is Mark Carney's offer, his solution on something like his response to the bail crisis that Liberals caused, we'll say, okay, we'll let it pass and then see what happens.
But you didn't exactly do that, right? Because those bills, the bail reform bill was introduced in late October. The hate crime bill that I know you have, very specific policy concerns about was introduced in early October. There's evidence in committee of one of your MPs, for example, filibustering and talking about cats and dogs in order to delay the debate around that. There is evidence that on certain instances, your party has used the tools available to it, which I get parties in opposition do, but given the stuff that I'm hearing from your delegate about collaboration, seems to run counter to a message you're trying to sell at the same time.
Well, that evidence is hearsay and is rejected because it's not true.
I saw the cats and dogs comment.
But what we were calling for, and there are 19, now 20 examples of this, where we came to committee and said, look, we're not going to agree on Bill C9. Liberals want to censor religious speech and text. Let's park that. Let's save our dispute on that to pass the bail reform bill, which we have long been calling for. 19 times the Liberals refused. It took our leader, Pierre Poilievre, writing a formal letter to the Prime Minister specifically outlining that. Finally, last week, after months of delay, Liberal delay, an agreement was reached, and now that bill will proceed. It was the Liberal choice.
But why can't you debate C9 and have your opposition to it and then eventually lead it to go to a vote?
Liberals control the timelines on committee. Liberals, it's a Liberal chair. So it was a Liberal choice to have a long and drawn-out debate on something that is very divisive for Canadians instead of actually tackling bail reform. That was a Liberal choice. That was not a Conservative choice.
But why did you have to delay the debate on the other one?
Why did the Liberals have to keep the discussion on C9?
With all due respect, I went hard at Minister McKinnon.
So we're supposed to let a bill pass that we don't agree with when there's another way?
Not pass, put to a vote.
Well, we specifically said let's park that and bring the bail reform bill to a vote. It was a Liberal choice to reject that offer until finally last week. So these are all Liberal choices. Liberals control the committees. They have Liberal chairs. It was completely within their power. If they wanted that bill passed more quickly, they had every tool at their disposal to do that.
So you're saying that you're not employing as a party on any instances in the past number of months, the tools that you have available to you to prolong things getting to a stage where the government can say, hey, look what we've done. We passed this thing. Really? I don't think that's true.
Well, look at the evidence. On key areas where we have said, Mark Carney says he needs this to, get big things built, to help fight back against U.S. tariffs, whether it's a trade deal or things like that. We said, okay, we will allow those things to pass.
C5.
And often, C5, C18 is coming up next week. C13. These are two Liberal Trudeau-era trade deals that are finally coming to the House. Those are areas that we have said, absolutely, we can let pass. We can agree to certain timelines. C2, remember C2, this was the government's response to everything from border security to the fentanyl crisis. They inserted a lot of things in there that were government overreach. We worked collaboratively with the government to hive off the sections that we agreed and gave that speedy passage through the House because there was some common ground there. So this characterization that when there's something that divides Canadians that Conservatives have long established opposition to, yes, we are not going to cooperate in the passage of those bills. But it's the Liberals themselves that have chosen to focus on those things that are more divisive rather than find that common ground.
Just one final question for you, Mr. If your characterization of all of that were true, would all the delegates here not be totally convinced of that?
Well, it is
Why
true.
are they asking for more collaboration, a different tone from Mr. Poilievre? In these instances, and I take your point that it's not everybody, but in these instances...
I would be happy to, maybe I could talk to the schedules here and have a whole session tomorrow on the last few months in Parliament and go bring some copies of Hansard's
just more
and journals.
largely. I don't mean we're talking the specifics, but I'm saying if that were the impression that you were leaving with your own party members, would they not be not raising these issues?
I can tell you, I've had the opportunity to speak to hundreds of delegates here today. That is, I don't believe that I believe the sentiments that you will find, and you will see it reflected in the vote tonight, is a strong endorsement of our leaders' approach, a strong endorsement of how Conservatives are absolutely able to establish principled opposition to things that we believe will harm Canadians, as we did for the last 10 years, watching this terrible, slow-moving train wreck of the last 10 10 years of Liberal government, imposing a carbon tax, chasing away billions of dollars of investment, inflationary deficits that robbed workers of their paychecks. Just as we were putting forward principled opposition then, we will do so today where it is warranted, and where we believe we can find some common ground, or where we believe that at least the Liberal legislation will not do any further harm. We'll say, okay, well, we'll respect the mandate that Canadians gave the Liberals and see what the results actually are. Results are far more important than intentions.
I got to leave it on that note. Mr. Scheer, pleasure as always. Thank you for making the time.